Tonight's show is brought to you by the importance of self-care, Vendetti Optics, and you, our listeners. I saw a lot of deer. There's a lot of wildlife. So if you're into photography or you just like looking at pretty deer butts, like there's going to be deer. What is up, all of you wayward souls, and welcome back to the Wayward Stories podcast. Wayward Stories is the podcast where we tell the tales of our adventures and our wanderings and our wonderings. How's everyone doing tonight? Are you guys ready for Turkey Day? We're getting real close, aren't we? For any of you that celebrate Thanksgiving anyway, or anyone that celebrates any kind of a harvest festival or a Friendsgiving. I like Friendsgivings the best. I think that's the best way to do it these days. You guys know me. I have my ritual birthday / Thanksgiving road trips that I take every year. Ever since I've been kind of on my own in the world. I guess this will be the, I don't know, 8th one, 7th one, or 8th one. And I've come to love them more than any actual family-centered Thanksgiving I ever went to. And there's a lesson in that for everyone. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with family-centered Thanksgivings, but it does mean there's space in the world for other people who have had different experiences in life. And I trumpet this every year, and I will do it again this year. I'm doing it right now. You guys, don't sit at home. Don't get depressed. Okay, you can't help that. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. Don't sit at home and feel sorry for yourself. Set yourself something to go do. Perhaps it's a road trip. Perhaps it's, who knows, a day trip. Whatever it is you have time for, whatever it is you care about and like, go and make a thing of it. And for me, I've come to love my road trips more. I just said that, than I ever did any kind of family Thanksgivings. There's something so empowering about that. So for the rest of us, there is space to do things your own way. We don't have to do everything traditionally all the time. As you're listening to this, I actually recorded some 2 weeks ago, probably, by the time I drop this. I'm not sure when I'm going to drop it. I'm going to be taking my annual huge road trip about this time. I may be on it as you guys are listening. This year it takes on some added significance, though, because this year I am actually, you know what? This is all going to come around full circle. In a weird way, I am completing a journey that I started 3.5, 4 years ago when I decided to go back to school. I will be driving to New Hampshire to walk at my commencement, which just happens to fall on the weekend before Thanksgiving. My birthday falls the weekday after Thanksgiving. So I'm taking an enormous 3,500 mile round road trip to walk at my commencement, which I never thought I'd want to do. I don't like doing things like that, but this one's significant. I'm only going to graduate from college once in my life, and I will regret it if I don't. And who doesn't love an excuse to be completely irresponsible, spend money you don't have to go on a road trip? This one's justified. Not really, but I'm going to say it is because it makes me feel a little bit better. Right? You guys know where I'm coming from. So I will be on that trip or making my way onto that trip when you're listening, but I'm recording this quite in advance because I have time tonight and need to do so. Housekeeping. If you guys want to get in touch, mywaywardstory@gmail.com, please do. I love hearing from you. Please rate, review, and subscribe. Definitely review. Okay. We've gotten a couple of ratings here and there in recent memory, but we haven't had a review like on Apple Podcast, at least in over a year. And I can't see the reviews on Spotify for some reason. I'm not sure why that is. Maybe they're all bad. Who knows? Maybe I don't want to see them. But leave a review. Super important. Ratings are good, but reviews are even more important. Putting words into the algorithm for the bots to crawl. It's really important. Anyway, let's get on with tonight. We're going to talk about a road trip tonight, a day trip that I took yesterday. As a matter of fact, that's why I'm doing it tonight, because it's fresh in my mind, amongst other reasons, which I'm about to elucidate and elaborate for you. Tonight we're going to wander and wonder. Sometimes we hit that wonder button on this podcast where I talk about things philosophical, because that's what it was from the very beginning, right? Me taking on a journey of self-discovery, trying to figure myself out, find myself, what my passions were. hence Wayward, right? After a big trauma. And it's all been about that. From day one, it's been about trying to find myself out there by chasing the things I'm passionate about. Photography, hiking, adventures, road trips, history, archaeology, whatever the hell it is, we're going to talk about it, right? In the hopes that you'll go, you know what? I could find something I'm really into and go out there and find myself and get off my butt. So we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight because, well, I just had a realization the other day. We're going to wonder for a bit. I'm going to talk about the archetypes of ritual and ritual initiation from a psychological and a anthropological point of view. And I promise, if you guys will stick with me, you will get some value out of this. I promise you will. And we're still going to talk about yesterday's day trip because that's where this kind of all came from. And I'll be completely honest tonight. I'm super depressed. It's been real heavy over here. A lot of people I care about are furloughed from the Park Service, but the government shut down. The country's looking pretty rancid right now. Things are rough for a lot of people. Things are heavy for a lot of people, and I'm no different. And I'm feeling very, very, very depressed. And so I'm doing this podcast tonight because I'm trying to combat that by staying creative, doing some creative things. Even though I don't really want to, it's like going to the gym, right? You know, that's dedications when you go when you don't want to. That's how you make gains. Well, tonight we're doing a little bit of self-preservation. I need to do something. I need to be a little bit creative. So I'm going to try to put my heart into this, but I think I can because I've got an interesting subject tonight and I think you guys will find value in it. And I will try to keep it brief, but I promise it'll be interesting before it's all over with. I've been doing a lot of research on the archetypes of initiation. This came up through various things in my studies. And what I mean by an archetype of initiation, understand that word is basically a transformation. Simplest way to think about it, the most obvious thing is a transition in life. Okay. A divorce, death of a dear loved one. Normal things that everyone's going to go through at some point. Midlife crisis for men, menopause for women. You're going to have puberty for everyone. There's 3 parts to these quote unquote initiations or transformations, transitions in life. And the reason we're going to talk about this is because it's not always about major stuff. It can be every day we have little transitions. It could be changing a job. It could be not even that big. There's just tiny little things, all these examples. Once you understand the archetype of it, you will see it in everything you do every day. And simply seeing it and understanding the point of it in the human psyche will make your life better, I promise you. You will see things that will help you approach and attack life better. And I promise this has to do with road trips. I promise. Okay. This is a book I've been reading, The Archetype of Initiation by Robert L. Moore. It's a series of lectures and essays combined into this book. Excellent book. A little bit dated. It's from the 90s, but it's an excellent book. Has a little bit of a Christian slant to it, which I personally am not a fan of because I'm not about organized religion anymore. You know, I do my own thing. Organized religion burned me hard a couple of times, and it's just not for me. So any of you out there that's just not for you, you're not alone. There's more of us out here. But that does not by any means mean we can't be spiritual, whatever. But this comes from a very sociological point of view. And there's so much value in this. Here's the idea. An initiation in archetype is only 3 things. It's in 3 parts. There is a call. There is heeding the call and stepping into the transitional space. So that's 2. And 3 is transitioning out of that transitional space and incorporating back into real life as this new person. For example, if you had a divorce, this is probably the best example. You're forced out onto a transformative road that you may not want to be on. That was my case. Back when all my traumas happened at once, I had no desire to be forced into that transitional space. But as soon as you are, that's the quote unquote call in this situation. You're pushed out into it. You can also choose to take on a call, like I chose to go to school. I heard a call. I need to do a thing. I chose to step out on that road. But as soon as you do, you step into a liminal space. You're now transforming. You're transitioning. You're no longer, for example, you're no longer married. but you're not quite fully divorced yet because your heart, your mind are still there. You may be going through all kinds. It's a whole mess. Anyone who's ever been through a divorce knows it's a whole mess. So there's a period there where you're in transition. You're not one or the other anymore, and you're on your way to being the other. And in that space where it's very liminal, that's where all kinds of crazy stuff happens. You have all kinds of really extreme emotions, all kinds of really extreme thoughts. You got all these things going on. And if it goes successfully, if you have a successful initiatory experience, a successful transition, then you will come out the other side for all the better for it. You'll come out more grown, more mature, stronger. You've been through it. You're wiser. You're ready to take on life again. You're ready to step out into the world in this new role that you either chose or has been thrust upon you. This is equivalent to the hero's journey that Joseph Campbell talks about in mythology. It's an every world mythology. And as a matter of fact, if you sit around and watch TV all the time, you're literally watching these things play out. Somebody ends up called in some way, form, or order. Then they go into battle. They go into their journey. They go in. They fight the demons. They slay the dragons. They, the agony, the ecstasy, and everything in between. And when they're done at the end of the movie, the end of the book, the end of the whatever, they're going to return to something, some semblance of normal life. And they're supposed to be bringing back the better version of them and whatever they gained on that path to reintegrate into their society, into their peer group, into their whatever, as all the better person with all these new gifts that they have, new strengths, new skills, new whatever, new knowledge, new wisdom, and bring that back to their society and make everything a better place. I mean, God, King Arthur, you name it, Robin Hood, all these things most of them have some form of the hero's journey within it. A initiatory experience is a hero's journey in its own right. And hero doesn't mean like you're going to go out and be so brave and noble. It just means you're the center of the story. You're the protagonist, right? Could be called the protagonist journey. So you're stepping out into this. And in that liminal space in between, you've heard me talk about liminal in some of the paranormal shows. That's not a coincidence. That's what started my interest down this path. When you're in that liminal space, you're in that transitory space, lots of things can change. And they can go really wrong too. And it's really important that you have a nice tight, what they call a container, a vessel, for this little alchemical thing to go on where all your stuff's changing. You're changing into a new kind of person. If you're going through puberty or menopause or midlife crisis for men, you're changing constantly, just like with the divorce scenario. And if you got a nice tight little container, then maybe you can have that get hot enough to have a good transformation and go from lead to gold. There's a whole other analogy path you can go down there. When you come out the other side, you're the better person for it, right? The reason this is important for what I want to talk about tonight is therapy is tiny little initiatory experiences, especially if you say go to a Jungian psychiatrist. I don't go to any therapy because I can't afford it, but I'm 100% on board with it. But the whole idea is you go in, you sit down, there's a certain submission of a form, like I sit down and I'm about to open my soul to you, Mr. or Miss Therapist. And in this space, it's safe. I can say anything, I can feel anything, I can do anything except, like don't be punching your therapist or whatever. But when I walk out the other side, I can go back to my daily life. These are tiny little initiations as you work through stuff. And usually, interestingly enough, this is not going to be a podcast about psychology, so I'm just going to brush by some of this stuff. But interestingly enough, most of the reasons people end up in therapy and need therapy is because of failed initiatory experiences, because no one was there. Our society doesn't do these rituals anymore. No one was there to guide us through it and say, for like me, for example, failed initiatory experience of becoming a man. There was no one there to tell me, you need to grow up now. Here's what you need to do. Here's what's expected of you. And here we're going to support you through it. So listen, when we're done on the other side of this, these are the responsibilities you take on. That's how you get a successful initiatory experience. When you don't have anyone to do that, you got to figure it out on your own. You end up with all these psychosis and neurosis and all these different words where you need to go to therapy because you spend all your time pacifying yourself by watching TV, playing video games, drinking, chasing cheap thrills, all these different ways that you pacify yourself. Like me, to tonight's episode's topic, I am figuring out that the road trip, even a day trip, even a drive alone at night is how I've always coped with things. And for me, I kind of came out lucky because for whatever reason, my addictions were nicotine and soda. So I'd have cigarettes and a soda pop, which nowadays I don't smoke anymore. So now it's like wintergreen gum in my trusty water bottle that I'm afraid I'm going to have to retire soon. There'll be like a whole ceremony for that. That thing's been with me all over the country, but it can't even stand up straight anymore. It's been damaged so many times. But anyway, I realized getting in that car is like little mini therapy sessions for me. That's how I've always coped, right? Go for a drive. Used to it was music. Now it's podcast and audio books, things that help me grow, help me learn. Like that just became kind of a thing for me. But it's not even that, because usually it's just background noise that I'm not even hearing anymore because I kind of trance out. That's an important part of this. And I just work through my stuff as I drive. And there's a reason I'm driving. I'm going somewhere to hopefully see things I've never seen before, right? I'm going to explore and expand my horizons and grow a little bit, learn something I've never known, see something I've never seen, take photographs, do something creative. Creativity is huge in these processes. And then I come back and I have to go back to being normal again, right? Get back to work and do your grunt labor and be a nobody again. Go back to your Joe job. That is literally a therapy session. You come from your Joe job, you step in with the therapist, the door closes, the container is shut, the crucible gets turned up, and you work through and you think through and you talk through your stuff, and then the door opens and you go back out, hopefully having some revelations or understandings about yourself. You figured something out and you go back to your Joe job, your everyday life, buying groceries, blah, 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 right? Think about a road trip. You have to step out on the road trip. You have to choose, hear the call. I've got to go, man. I've got to get out and go for a drive. That's what happened to me yesterday and why this is happening tonight, this podcast. I was like, I've got to go. I don't even want to. I'm depressed. I don't even want to. But I have to. I cannot sit here all day because you want to talk about depressed if I sit here all day. So I'm going to make myself go somewhere I've been kind of wanting to go check out. It's a long drive. It's only a day to do it in. But you know what? 6 hours worth of driving today to see something for 2 hours is better than sitting here for 8 total hours doing nothing and feeling sorry for myself, right? So I hear the call. I need to go. I need to get out. I need to go take some pictures, whatever. And you go, and as soon as you get in the car and you shut that door, you've closed the container. The crucible is turned up, and now you are in a different space. You're in transition. You're driving the whole time. You're not at home. You're not where you're going. And even when you get where you're going, you're still not at home. So you're still in transition to somewhere, right? And when you come back, hopefully you were calmer. You got less anxiety. Even if you don't realize anything major, hopefully you've just had a good day and you've chilled out and you come back a little bit better person for it, ready to face the world again for a minute, just like a therapy session. So that's why tonight's episode's called Road Trip Therapy, because for me at least, and I think maybe if you think about it, for many of you who love that call of the open road, that's some form of therapy for us. We close that door, we hit our liminal space, the mindset is ripe for just chilling, thinking, letting things play out, being excited about something for a change that's not the everyday mundane, I'm going to go see something new I've not seen before. That's super important for mental health anyway. Just the spice of life. You got to have a little bit of variety to have some spice in life, right? You don't want to eat plain white rice all the time. You got to throw some soy sauce in there every once in a while, right? And then you go and you do the thing. You see something new. You've actually grown a little bit. You've transformed a little bit. Maybe you learned something somewhere that really, wow, I never thought of that. Maybe you had a little bit bigger realization that expanded your mind, made you a more whole person. And you come back, you open that door, you step out of the crucible, and you've had a successful initiatory experience, i.e. a therapy session, right? Road trip therapy, baby. I think we're on to something. I'm saying all this tonight for a reason. One, I think that you guys, if you understand, I know it's big words and stuff. Maybe it's not. Maybe I did a good job of articulating that. But it's a real simple idea. And once you see that archetype, meaning just a framework, a template, archetype means template. Let's use that word. Once you see that template of like, oh, damn, pretty much everything in my life is this 3-part thing where I got to do something else. I step out, I do the thing, whether I'm forced to or it's my choice. And I do some changing. And when I come out the other side, I'm supposed to bring that and incorporate myself back into society as this other thing. And it can be tiny like a little road trip. and just growing your knowledge a little bit, all the way up to transformative life changes like I went through when all of my bad stuff happened, and I went through all that trifecta, the perfect storm of deaths in the family and divorce and all the horrible things coming together at one time that nearly broke me. Should have broken me. If it weren't for my daughter, it absolutely would have broken me. That was a forced initiatory experience. And I had that crucible where I was in that liminal state, and I had a whole change where it's like, I have wasted my life pacifying myself with football games on Saturday and golf on Sundays and all these things that aren't bad things in and of themselves, but when you use them to pacify you to not deal with your problems and not be a productive human being and grow, because that's the one thing I think we're all here to do is grow and expand, it is a problem. And I think it's what most of us do. And that's what I did for the first 20-something years of my life, constantly hiding behind, well, if I keep working hard, the American dream, I will get ahead, I'll get a promotion, and I'll make money, and I'll be a respectable adult someday. America don't work that way anymore, baby. I learned that the hard way. America don't hardly work at all anymore. It's falling apart right now. And I heard the call. I have to change things, and I want to be passionate, and I want to care about stuff I do in this world. And I rediscovered photography, and I rediscovered hiking, and the things that used to matter for me, to me, before I got pacified and started pacifying myself. Thank God it wasn't alcohol. Thank God it wasn't drugs. Because that's what we do in Arkansas anyway, and the South in general. I mean, we do it everywhere, but the South's real bad about it. Go look at the statistics. We pacify ourselves with alcohol and methamphetamines, right? It's different things in different parts of the country. It's a national problem, really. We lead the world in those kinds of addictions and depression and anxiety, neurosis, as it were. So I think if you just see that little tripartite, that little very simple template for just how kind of life lines out and how we are as humans inherently going to go through and supposed to go through multiple transitions in our life, from tiny ones to big ones. If you have that in your mind, you can really approach life a little bit more effectively, have a little bit better life out of it. So we're going to talk about the road trip that I set out to take yesterday that ended up being just a little bit of a therapy session, which like I said, I think road trips have always been therapy sessions for me. I just never knew it, but all of the components are there. So let's talk about, now let's go a wandering that we've done our wondering. And I'm sure some of that wondering will weave its way back into this as we do things here. But let's go to Calico Rock, Arkansas. Calico Rock is a really interesting little town that I've been seeing come across my Facebook feed for a long time now. It's one of those places, only in your state.com, only this, only that, only in Arkansas. And anyway, they talk about the ghost town of Calico Rock. It's not really a ghost town. I went and checked it out yesterday. So we're going to talk about my road trip to go see this interesting little town. It ended up being really cool, but the whole road trip in and of itself is significant. Because it's that drive for me, man. I don't know about you guys, but I actually like the drive. I don't just want to go there and get the picture for my Insta, right? Because I've got to keep up with the Joneses so I can be a part of the cool kids, I'm an outdoorsy person club. I actually want to go there and understand what that place is about, why it's significant. I want to take pictures of it. I like photography, but I want to enjoy the whole trip. I enjoy the drive, the towns you see along the way, the things you see. And it's also where you can get into those mindsets where you have a little bit of altered consciousness. That can be a real big part of initiatory experiences. Like you think about South America, it's ayahuasca, right? In American Southwest, it's peyote. You have a lot of rituals where you go and you ingest a hallucinogen in your liminal state and you see what God sees by that belief system, right? Altered states of consciousness is an important part of it, but it doesn't have to be that kind of an altered state. You could simply be super chill, which you're not normally, because your 9 to 5 is actually like a 6 a.m. to 12 p.m. and you never get to stop. But if you have that moment where you kind of lull out and you zone out and you're just cruising and you get in the rhythm of the road, your brain changes a little bit. That brain structure opens up a little bit and you're able to think more freely about stuff. So that altered state of consciousness comes from a good drive, right? That can come from a good drive. So we get out there and I get on my good drive. And this good drive for me was Interstate 40 from Fort Smith over to Morrilton, Arkansas. And then it was basically Highway 9 almost all the way up to Calico Rock. It's about a 3.5 hour drive for me. So I spent the better part of 7 hours driving yesterday. And for me, I need that. That's a good long therapy session, right? From Morrilton, after you hit Highway 9, it gets beautiful fast. We have so many. I almost did this as a backcountry byways episode. I had one of those here a couple of years ago. Maybe it's not been quite that long, 1.5 years ago. Just talking about scenic byways in Arkansas, the roads less traveled, things that people don't necessarily know about. This Highway 9 business from basically Morrilton, Arkansas on Interstate 40 all the way. I don't even know how far it goes. I went as far as Calico Rock. It probably keeps on trucking on up to Missouri. Really nice state highway. Well paved, not a lot of potholes. 55 miles an hour the whole way, a great cruising speed for a windy, curvy road. Every time I get to drive one of those, I get so happy because Clementine loves those windy, curvy roads with her all-wheel drive. Like, we get busy on those roads. So much fun to drive. And one of the things that really stood out to me on that drive was how much like personal pride people took in their property. Listen, this is probably why I'm never going to get hired by anyone, is because I tell the truth. But like, the further south you get in our state, the more Sanford and Sons it gets. You guys remember? Anyone know Sanford? Just Google it. You youngsters out there never seen or heard of Sanford and Sons, look it up. It was a show in the 70s. I think it was the 70s. It's a funny show. It's a good show. But like, guy basically lived in a salvage yard, right? So I say this only half jokingly because most people in the country down here in South Arkansas, and the further you go south, live in junkyards because people don't throw stuff away. They throw it in the front yard and the backyard and the side yards. It never ceases to amaze me. I get on these state highways back in the sticks and they're so beautiful, but then you hit an area where there's some private property and some houses and it's like, oh my God, what is that? How can you stand that? But that's a thing, just is. I was shocked because heading north on Highway 9 from Morrilton, basically all the way to Calico Rock, it's not like that. People and it didn't matter what kind of dwelling it was in, right? We got this whole stereotype about the South and trailers, double wides, mobile homes. Did you know that they're not called mobile homes because they're mobile? They're called mobile homes because they were invented and initially created heavily in Mobile, Alabama. They're actually mobile homes. Look it up. Promise. But even houses that were like single wides and double wides and all those kinds of things that I grew up in, the people had their yards mowed and they had hay in the fields. Like, they actually had some pride in themselves. I was like, this is beautiful. This, you know what? Bucolic comes to mind. Big words come to mind. What a pastoral scene. Look at this bucolic view. That's what came to mind. I was just, listen, it's just, I know this sounds silly, but to me, I was kind of shocked. I was like, you just don't see this on these state highways in the backcountry around here. Like, it was a really cool drive. I was just really impressed by that. There are several towns up Highway 9 that are really cool. Two of the small towns that I thought were really cool were towns of Shirley and Rushing. They were really interesting. The road, I can't remember which one. I think it was maybe Shirley. But the road kind of snakes through them. And you go underneath this like overhead walkway that's where the elementary school is. And they're just like Americana. What you think of when you think of small town America, but like a nice small town America, like clean cut looking. Just neat little towns, Shirley and Rushing. And I think it might have been Rushing. I can't remember which one of the two. It looked like it had a tiny little downtown district that would be really cool to check out on a Saturday. Of course, I was traveling on a Sunday because that's how I roll, because I have to most of the time, and everything was closed. But it looked like, I was like, I need to come back up here on a Saturday and explore some of these small towns when some of their shops and their restaurants and their different things are open. It's very, very, very neat little drive. It was a fun drive all the way up. There's a couple of larger towns along the way. And you know what? I'm going to talk about those after the break. But I am going to throw this in here. Between, I believe it was Shirley and Rushing, is a place called the Hinkle Homestead, the historic Hinkle Homestead. And this is a really cool thing. This has actually been popping up on Facebook here lately. There's an old feller who I believe it's his family's and it's in his name, his family land kind of deal. And there's this very historic little homestead. I believe it's 1850s is the number my brain's pulling back, but I didn't write down a note on it. That's on me. But they've kept it all these years, and it's been either kept up or they refurbished it, and he's been keeping it up. But he keeps it open, and right here in the edge of this field, behind a little gate, and you guys remember, when you go through a gate, you close the gate behind you, which I don't think you're going to be keeping any cows in or horses out, but it's good practice, especially anywhere in the South. If you got permission to go on property and you open a gate, you shut it behind you. Because listen, they're going to make you chase that cow you let out all night until you catch it. And that's only proper and fair, right? But shut the gate behind you and you go up and it's there and it's wide open. They say, I guess maybe it's on Saturdays or something, the old man hangs out there and he'll tell you stories about it and tell you all about it. He wasn't there when I went, but the door was still open. And I went in respectfully and I looked and they got pictures and frames and they got some newspapers about, I think, the house itself when maybe they were restoring it. Maybe it was being restored at some point. But like they got all these little things in there. So if you go, do not be jerks and take things. Do not spray paint on stuff. Do not damage things. Be good, reasonable, decent human beings on someone else's property the way you would want someone to treat your house if they just walked in, and go check it out. Very historic, and it's beautifully stabilized. I don't know if they restored it, when they restored it. I don't know all that. I just know it's beautifully stabilized and being preserved. And this guy's keeping it open to the public. It even has its own Arkansas historical marker. So it's a really cool place between Shirley and Rushing. So that's something to check out as you go along your way. Now we've hit basically 32 minutes in, so this is going to be our break for the night. So we're going to go to break, and when we come back, we're going to explore Mountain View a little bit, Clinton a little bit, not really. I didn't keep up with what happened in Clinton, but we're going to explore Mountain View, and we're going to go on to Calico Rock and several other things in the area along the way. You guys stick around, and we'll be right back. What is up, all of you wayward souls? I want to tell you guys about our newest sponsor, Bendetti Optics, a brand based right here in the good old US of A, Portland, Oregon, to be exact. And I bought my first pair of Bendetti sunglasses about 1.5 years ago and fell in love with them, so much so that I got online and ordered a couple of more pair. And when I did, there was a small shipping snafu, an order fulfillment snafu, and I got on the phone, gave them a call, and guess what? I get a call back from who? One of the big men themselves, right there in Portland, from the top of the chain. Have a great conversation, and we end up starting this great relationship we have. They more than made right the little snafu that occurred, and I am now a huge proponent of them because I can tell you from personal experience they are good people, and they're trying to compete with the big boys out there coming in at a price point of about $40 but using the exact same frame material, TR90, and the same polarization process as the big guys. As it turns out, something I think we are already probably knew in our hearts, when you buy big name sunglasses, you're buying a big name, not necessarily any more quality than you can get somewhere else, like at Bendetti Optics. They have 29 different styles. They have multiple polarization options for whatever climate you happen to live in. And they back it up with like this lifetime guarantee that if your dog eats your sunglasses, it doesn't matter how you break them, send it back in with a check to cover shipping and handling and you're golden. You got a new pair on the way. These guys are truly trying to do it right. And they have this philosophy that a really good pair of sunglasses should not cost you so much that you are afraid to wear them. And I think all of us outdoorsmen can relate to that. So if you guys, like me, are very practical and like to get more bang for your buck and wear some great looking sunglasses, check out BendettiOptics.com. That's BENDETTI optics.com. Or you can go over to Instagram /BendettiOptics. And that I highly suggest, whether you buy a pair or not, just to check out the cutest pupper you'll ever see modeling sunglasses. Once again, that's BendettiOptics.com. And make sure and let them know Wayward Stories sent you. And welcome back. Thank you guys for sticking around through our sponsor break. Make sure and go support those sponsors too. It's still Bendetti. It'll probably always be Bendetti just because I love those guys. They're good human beings. They are. They've been good to me over these years. If you guys need sunglasses, go check out Bendetti's stuff. You cannot do better for $40. I promise you. I have several pairs for different things that I do. That's not you already heard the advertisement. This is just me being real with you. They're good humans running a small business in the United States, and they've got sick sunglasses. Go check them out. Anyway, let's move on. We're going to go through Mountain View. You do go through Clinton, and it's one of the larger towns. What I can tell you about Clinton is they have food. You can get food, you can get gas there. You can do that also in Mountain View, a little bit on up the road. And you can, basically choose your solution there, whichever one you want. Mountain View does have, and I've not been in there. I almost went in there a year or two ago, a couple years ago, and I don't remember what stopped. I think it was too late is what stopped us. But they have kind of a cliched sort of food place. It's like the Wing Shack, and it's big, and it's body, and it's bodacious, and I got signs all over it, and it looks like, a TGI Fridays exploded on the side of it. They probably have really good food. I don't know. I haven't gone in there, but they have that. I think it's called the Wing Shack or something like that. But the main things about Mountain View is there are a couple of places to stay, different Airbnbs, different hotels, different lodges. There's basic fast food necessities, Pizza Hut, which I'm a huge fan of the Hut, baby. There are people that Hut, like they say nobody pizzas like the Hut. Yeah, other people pizza better than the Hut, but Pizza Hut's pretty solid option for the price you pay. And God, you've got me by my heartstrings if they still have an open lobby that you can eat in, because that's my childhood, man. They've closed almost all of them. If you see one and you can go eat in the lobby, you better do it, because they are an endangered species. They will be gone eventually. We can't save it. Progress is steamrolling everything you love, if you're my age at least. But the thing about Mountain View is they have the Ozark Folk Center roughly just outside of Mountain View, and Blanchard Springs Caverns as well. So we're going to talk about that for just a minute. The Ozark Folk Center, it's only open April through October. So you're going to need to keep that in mind, but it's a really cool place. They have all these basically folk artisans there, and they're artisaning, they're crafting. There's blacksmiths. There's music everywhere. Dulcimers are a big thing in the Ozarks, right? We got that Appalachian heritage, that bluegrass heritage, all of the people that populated the Ozarks came from the Apps. It came from Pennsylvania. Like, listen, that was my whole program a couple of weeks ago, the migration thing. But you've got folk music, you've got folk crafts. They have a little bit of everything, and I have been there, and it is a pretty neat little place. It is something, and you got to get your state park stamp, right? If you're going to get your Arkansas state park stamps and you're going to do them all, you got to go there anyway, so you might as well go there. The folk center is really cool. Catch them when they're open. The other thing is, however, Blanchard Springs Caverns, now however, it's not the right word to use where I just used it, but just roll with me. We're moving tonight. Blanchard Springs Caverns is very, very interesting. It's managed by the U.S. Forest Service, and they have underground tours of the caverns that they run all day, every day. They seasonally have an extended tour and a wild cave tour. The wild cave tour, you've maybe run across these before, where it's like, you better wear your sturdy boots and strap up, because we're going to drag you through the mud. Long, arduous. You have to be in a certain amount of decent physical shape to do it. They have one. So it's worth checking out. The regular tour through is beautiful. It's a living cave. It's still alive. It's not a dead cave. All of the cave formations, many of them are still growing. And I've been on that tour, and it's a great tour. And last I heard, they're actually being responsible and updating some of their interpretation of things to be like, in 1963, white men discovered the cave, to like, actually, we've got cane torches that are 18,000 years old at the bottom of this thing. Like, they're actually doing the responsible thing and updating to recognize the archaic peoples that entered that cave, as well as the Osage who had it before the United States government did, right? So they're doing good work working on that. And it's a really cool cave tour, one of the commercial cave tours. I'm still kicking around in my head doing like an episode someday of commercial cave tours. I just feel like there's a small handful of these commercial caves I've not been in. I've been in most of them, but there's some that I haven't been that are kind of like names you would be like, how could you have left that out that I need to go to first? That's Maybe an episode for down the road someday. But for today, Blanchard Springs Caverns is a really cool little adventure. And also, they have passport stamps for your national park stamps. Even though it's not a national park site, it is a government site, and they have I believe they're Eastern National gift store, so you can get your park stamp there. That's also cool. But also, there's Mirror Lake. Now, Mirror Lake has a giant dam. The dam creates an enormous waterfall, and there used to be a mill below the waterfall that is now a husk, which just has a couple of walls. And you want to talk about photography opportunity. If you're into photography, listen, one of the best pictures I've ever taken, truly. The timing was right. The sunset was right. The cloud cover was right. I got one of the best long exposures of moving water I've ever gotten. It's Mirror Lake Falls. You go back through my Instagram, Wayward Sun 119. It'd be a year and a half ago. You can't miss it. When you see it, you'll know it. You'll be like, oh, bro. Beautiful pictures. Not a hard hike. You just run down. I did it barefoot part of the way because the water, yeah, it was a whole thing. Not a big deal. Not a big deal hike. Beautiful photography. Absolutely stunning to witness in person when that water's really flowing. So Mountain View in and of itself is a really cool place to explore. And not the point of tonight's show, but it's on the way to Calico Rock if you're coming from the south at least, but it's in the vicinity of Calico Rock. It's within an hour of it. So keep that in mind, because here's the thing. We're going to go up and check out Calico Rock in a minute. You're like, why haven't we gotten to Calico Rock yet? It's because there's not a lot to talk about in Calico Rock. I'm just going to be straight with you. But all these other things in the area would collectively create a hell of a good day. Possibly a good weekend, worthy of staying a whole weekend. So we're kind of going through it all. It's, again, road trip therapy, baby. Day trip therapy, it could be. We're going somewhere. We're seeing what there is to see. We're going to do what we have time to do. That's what we're doing. So stay with me. Mountain View is a great place to go. They also, like I said, they have places to stay. My drive up, I will say this too. Lots of deer. I saw a lot of deer. There's a lot of wildlife. So if you're into photography or you just like looking at pretty deer butts, like there's going to be deer. But I saw a bald eagle chomping on something in the road. I don't know what it was. It was roadkill. It was fresh. And that dude took off. And from a distance, my first inclination was it's like any one of these turkey vultures that we have running around here, right? But as soon as it took off, it had that white plume of tail feathers right in my face. And I was like, oh, that's an eagle. And anyway, this guy, I don't know why, he flew right down the center of the road in front of me for, I would say, I don't know, 10 to 12 seconds, which at speed, 55 miles an hour, what is that? A tenth, 2/10 of a mile, quarter of a mile, several hundred yards, probably 1,500 yards. I had 10 or 12 seconds to check out this bald eagle's butt, and it was majestic. Bald eagles have the most majestic butts on the planet, like for wildlife anyway. Different story. But bald eagles are so majestic, right? I'm kidding. I'm not into bald eagle butts. Don't quote me on that. Somebody's going to clip this. I know they are. But that guy, the wingspan, and I think I've even talked about a bald eagle wingspan on here before, because I've seen a bald eagle before, like trying to carry a live raccoon off of a road somewhere down, I forget, around Ola, Plainview, Arkansas, when I was working for FedEx. But this guy's going right down the road in front of me, and he's flapping those wings, and when he hits his full extension, I swear to you, it looked like it was the width of the road, which I know it's not. They don't have 16-foot wingspans, but it was just huge. I think I've heard or read, and actually do fact check me on this, but don't send me an email about it because I don't care. But I think they're 6 feet. I think they can have a 6-foot wingspan. The height of an average male or whatever. That's mind-boggling, but to see it and see it as close as I was able to see it, for as long as I was able to see it in flight, pacing with it, basically, like I was able to actually watch this thing for a minute because it stayed fairly low to the ground. I mean, it was above the height of my car, but it was still it was probably under 20 feet off the road, right out in front of me, maybe 50 yards, just stroking it down the highway right in front of me for 10 or 12 seconds. Like, that was a heck of a view. You could see the way its wings articulated. And when it took off into the tree, it looked even more massive because it did like this broadside turn. And I was like, oh my God, that was super cool. So there's bald eagles too. You see deer, you'll see bald eagles. And also, you're going along all these little towns, Shirley, Mountain View, all these different places. They're on the White River. The White River is like a world famous trout stream, by the way. So get your 3 or 5 day, trout tag, or just a regular tag, but you're going to need your trout tag because trout like anything flashy. So if you go fishing for our smallmouth, our largemouth, and the White River, you're very likely going to catch a trout by accident. And that's no excuse to a game warden. He's going to be like, where's your tag? So just understand that. But you're going along and there's public accesses at most of these little towns and all along the way. And the White River's beautiful. Like, it makes up multiple lakes. Table Rock Lake, Taneycomo Lake, Beaver, I think Bull Shoals, probably Heber Springs, it makes up an enormous number of lakes in the Ozarks. There's trout stocked at most of them below the dam where the water's ice cold. So there's nice trout. There's all kinds of great fishing. The White River it's a sports person's playground. It truly is. So know that as well. And with that in mind, should you want to come down and stay and adventure and explore Calico Rock and Mountain View and the Ozark Folk Center and all of these things, you'll find that there's plenty of fishing resorts that you could just get a little cabin on the water at, or a little room, and you maybe do fish. Maybe if you go in the summer, you do a little swimming. Who knows? The world is your oyster, or your trout, as it were, right? So know that as well. And Calico Rock's no different. They have a public access to the river, and the river there is also beautiful. And I think with that, we're going to actually make it into Calico Rock now. You come into Calico Rock, first thing you do is cross the White River, and you're staring at these bluffs that are splotched with whites and black stains and kind of reddish stains. All these different things that actually represent probably 200 million years of natural history of the earth, like when the Ozarks were actually at the bottom of the inland sea that split right down the United States of America. And that's why it's called Calico Rock, is because it looks like calico cloth. That's where it got its name. And you get to stare at those as you drive across the White River, far above it on the bridge into town. And as soon as you enter town, and actually, I think we do have a quick changeover from Highway 9 to Highway 5. So if you're like actually trip planning, double check all that. But I think it becomes Highway 5, right? Sometime just before you're heading up into town. But as you come off the highway into downtown, right across the bridge, you come across railroad tracks, which is part of what made Calico Rock what it was in its heyday. And then you're in downtown, the historic downtown district. And it is freaking beautiful. The people of Calico Rock, the city government of Calico Rock, has invested their money wisely to create a beautiful little downtown experience and preserve some of the buildings from the 1920s. They don't go much older than that. Calico Rock burned a couple of times, like almost every town in America did in those days. I always tell that joke when I'm giving my tours down at the fort when the fort's open, which has been closed over a month now, which is the saddest, most heartbreaking thing ever, to not get to go talk to my people and give tours. But I always make that joke because we had, an escape attempt where someone tried to set the gel on fire. And anyway, it comes about where I'm like, they weren't waiting on a hole to burn in the ceiling because they knew what smoke inhalation was. It was 1875 in Victorian era America. Downtown was slated to burn every other Thursday. And that's a fact. That's just how it was in those days. So Calico Rock suffered at the hands of fire a couple of times. And so they have some really, though, still beautiful 1920s buildings. In those buildings, they have antique shops, as you might expect. They also have a history museum, which I did not get to inspect because they're closed. I didn't get to go inside. But I intend to go back because I want to get more of that history and I want to explore some of the other shops. And there's a few things I want to do up there when things are open. But even for just a Sunday with not much to do, I had an incredibly enjoyable little time down there. And that's partially because I am me and I'm a nerd. But like one of the things I did is I wandered up and down the railroad tracks a little bit. I found the old spur that's been abandoned since probably 1980 when the Missouri Pacific gave up all that trackage right, and found a loose spike. And I've got a collection of railroad spikes. You guys know me, I'm into railroad history. So I just get one little railroad spike anywhere I can get one from historic routes, not like modern routes. I'm not into more modern stuff, but I'll get like a historic spike if I can find one. And so I've got a little collection. So I wandered around and inspected the tracks and found a little spike. I was able to see that the rail on the little siding was installed in 1929 because it actually shows when the rail was stamped at the steel mill. And so I found the 1929 date stamp on one and a 1939 date stamp on another. So that was pretty cool. And also there was one thing open that was awesome, and that was the Printing Press Cafe. And I'm assuming that it's because maybe the printing press was in that building before, back in the heyday of the city. But I did not eat lunch because I didn't need lunch, but I did get a chocolate shake. And that chocolate shake was killer. It was so good. Like, you guys have heard me say before, like, I kind of judge places by their chicken fried steaks or whatever. But a chocolate shake's another really solid option to judge a place by its chocolate shakes. If they know how to make a good malt, oh God, if they know how to make a good malt, that's a whole different world. But the shake was awesome. It was a beautiful little shop. I mean, it's everything down there's been restored, renovated, and it's beautiful. It's really beautiful. There was a boatload of people in there having lunch. Probably church folks, actually, if I think about it. Because it was Sunday afternoon, and it is a little small town America. And but they were having lunch and their food looked awesome. I had to wait on my shake for a minute, and I had this sweet little lady come up to me. Her name was Ann. Hi, Ann. If you listen to the show now, because she was very interested. Hi, Ann. If you're listening, she came up and she asked me, she's like, what is Wayward Stories? Because I have it on my man purse, right? I've got like the little Molly patches on my Molly Velcro on my tactical man purse. It says Wayward Stories Podcast. And she came up and asked me about it. And we talked about it. And we talked the whole time I waited on my shake. And she is a sweet lady. And she was super interested in the stuff I was doing and just thought it was so cool. And it was my pleasure. And if you're listening, it was my pleasure to meet you. And I enjoyed our conversation. That was very fun. So the Printing Press Cafe. You guys need to go check it out when you go to Calico Rock. Like, don't miss it. I would say don't miss it. I can't speak to the food. It looked great. It smelled great, but I did not eat it, so I can't speak to the food. But their chocolate shake was awesome. And if that's any indicator of the food, they're going to be a solid option for you. Be a total move, as the kids say, right? No cap. Moving forward, Pepper Sauce Ghost Town. They call it Pepper Sauce Alley, I think. And Pepper Sauce Ghost Town, what it is, this is the thing that's making your Facebook post or your Instagram post. If you're seeing them in your feed, if you follow any of the Arkansas groups or whatever, if you Google it, this is what you're going to see. And here's the thing. They're like, it's this cool ghost town. It's not a ghost town at all. It's the abandoned district of when the town was booming that's literally right behind the downtown where I just had the awesome chocolate shake and talked to Ann, right? They are abandoned buildings. They are really cool. The website states they have like 6 blocks worth of them. Do not picture that in your head as like 6 square city blocks back to back with multiple buildings. They say there's 23 buildings, but like I walked through there and I can count off the top of my head down that main street, maybe 6 or 8 that I saw, and they were all cool, very photogenic. Instagram, Wayward Son 119, go look. I'll have those pictures up by the time this drops. They're cool buildings, but like everything else was like getting into like private property and stuff. I didn't see anywhere else to go to explore these abandoned buildings. And I got to thinking about it. You know what? It could have been 2 or 3 blocks long. I don't know. Maybe I missed some stuff, but I wasn't about to go walking around down in people's, like right up by their houses. There were, stray dogs, maybe not strays, but dogs not on leashes wandering around. I don't want to get in people's business. I never want to intrude on people's business. And I also am from a small town very much like Calico Rock. And I'm not going to cast aspersions on the folks at Calico Rock. They may be very amenable to strangers wandering around their front yards, basically. But where I come from in a small town just like that, here in basically the same state, across an invisible line, 20 yards, You don't go walking around, especially as a stranger, out of place, up in people's business, that close to people's business. You just don't do that. It's not smart. It's not smart. Um, so I didn't want to do that. I will say this. I just mentioned people's dogs. I was like, there were some dogs around that weren't on leashes. Where when I crossed the little bridge into this pepper sauce ghost town, there's a little bridge, and then there's the old jail that's right there. It's very cool. You can go inside of it. Then there's this really cool feed mill of some kind. It was definitely a feed store. Have like Purina dog chow ghost signs on it. This car passed me, went across the bridge, goes on. A couple minutes later, I look up the road, and here comes this big fluffy boy dog. He's big fluffy. He doesn't miss any meals. He's a big boy. And I was like, oh, here comes a dog, and he's on a beeline for me. So I'm in my head accessing Big Purple Days, FedEx. All right, know how to deal with the dog. I know how to deal with the dog. But he's coming straight at me. But then he sort of veered because I was off the road, obviously, looking at the gel, actually. And at a certain point, I realized he was angling where he was going to go just past me. And I realized he was just running down the road. And he was on a mission, man. Like he was going in a beeline somewhere. He was just trotting along to the point that I just kind of stopped and I turned and looked at him to make sure he wasn't going to circle around behind me. And he kind of just like looked up and nodded at me. So I nodded at him, said, hey there. And he just kept on trucking, ran right across the bridge. It was hilarious. You could hear him on the metal deck of that bridge. Doom, 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 doom. And the bridge started rocking a little bit. And you could hear the metal squeaking. And he just ran right on up into town. I was like, you know what? I just realized what happened. That was his owner that passed me in the car. And he was probably just chasing him into town, going to go find where he went. He's like, you don't leave me at home, mofo. What you doing? Anyway, he was a nice boy. He had no interest in me. He even gave me a nod, like, hey, stranger. And I was like, sup? And he moved on. But, you know, you got to keep your eye open for stuff like that. You're kind of separated from your car when you walk down through here, and there are residential houses just on the very periphery of this place. But Pepper Sauce Ghost Town, really cool. For photography, very cool. There's even a little lot that's probably owned by someone and is probably no trespassing, but there were no trespassing signs. There were no trespassing signs. Let me reword that to be accurate. There's a Mack truck. There's an old International. I mean, we're talking probably 20s, 30s, maybe into the 40s. Very photogenic. Again, go look at the pictures. And so that was really cool. And other things there in town that you can check out. There's not a whole lot more, to my knowledge. There is I believe it's the Riverview Inn. It's been an inn, a place you can stay since 1928. It has been remodeled and refurbished. And interestingly, it's right on the bluff, right up above the railroad tracks. And that's what's cool about it is it was where people would get off the train there when the train still ran, back when there was still passenger service. And they would go up and they'd stay and get a room at the hotel. It was a railroad hotel. How cool is that? They're still open today. They've remodeled, renovated, and supposedly have kept at least some of the rooms in their 1928 aesthetic, but it's refreshed. I didn't go in. I did my research online about it. You can look it up for yourself, but that'd be a really cool place to stay. And again, the White River's right down at the bottom of the bluff below Calico Rock. There is an access down there. And then also, again, anywhere around you the White River there's going to be fishing resorts. There's going to be river accesses. There's going to be a lot of things to check out. All in all, it was a super cool trip. You know what? Let me read you real quickly because I did not do that. Let me see what it says about the Pepper Sauce, the little ghost town. East Calico was once the commercial center of Calico Rock and the surrounding county, but today a 6-square-block chunk of it is a ghost town. At least 23 of the original structures, which included a cotton gin, electric power and ice plant, groceries, and other shops are still standing, but others are empty, overgrown foundations, and boarded-up shells. Maybe they're so overgrown that maybe there's a couple blocks I didn't even see. Again, there were signs saying private road for this place and that place, and I went as far as it felt like I wasn't trespassing. So I don't know about the other blocks that I may have missed, but the ones I saw were really cool and totally worth checking out. Calico Rock was settled in the 1820s, it looks like. And it was first post office 1851, and it did boom. It became a boom town. And then after the railroad kind of went out and the timber went out and all the different things that created the boomtown scenario, it kind of went out, became a little ghost town over there, and just small town America. I think the population's around 900 people today. So it's super fun, super interesting little road trip. It's great for photography. It's great for a chocolate shake. It's neat. It's great to meet neat little ladies like Anne. It's a great road trip, and it's a great drive. Like I said, it's a beautiful drive. The drive itself has some great photography opportunities on it. So if you find yourself maybe identifying with some of the things I said at the beginning of tonight's episode and realizing, you know what? I get my road trip therapy in too. That's a cool idea. Maybe I need to do more of that. Calico Rock is a great little road trip to get you some road trip therapy in. Again, man, getting off those interstates and hitting those state highways and kicking it at 55 and just being able to kind of chill and not having a ton of traffic on the road. Y'all, I'm still a professional driver. It may not be Big Purple anymore, but I'm still in a big old truck driving in traffic all day, every day. The interstates have become absolute nightmares. About the only place you can have that old school, nice, wide open interstate drive anymore is out in the far, far west. It's just from the East Coast all the way to the dead center of America, all the way to Oklahoma City and beyond. It's just the interstates are so congested. I never thought I'd see bumper to bumper traffic at 75 miles an hour. It's terrifying. 80, 90 miles an hour. But the county roads, the back roads, that's where you can slow down and enjoy your drive again. And Highway 9 from the interstate in Morrilton, Arkansas, all the way up to Calico Rock is a pretty nice little drive to get your therapy session in. And I suspect any way that you come at Calico Rock from anywhere else, most of those state highways up there are very similar to that. Was there like 412 crosses through there? 65, I think, is a little more interstatey. I know people kicking on it because everyone going to Branson, right? But there's so many different roads all through that area, and all of them are nice drives. All of them are dotted with little towns like Shirley and Rushing and Clinton and Mountain View. Yaleville is a cool place that's close by. You'd be up there fairly close to, I think, where the Cotter Bridge is. And I got a cool picture at Christmas time of the Cotter Bridge lit up in Christmas colors a couple of Christmases ago. I just said Christmas. And man, if you took a drink for every time I just said Christmas, you'd be out by the time I wrap this up 5 minutes from now. Actually, about 30 seconds from now. Knock, knock. Who's there? Justin. Justin who? Justin forgot something. Imagine that. Hey guys. Sorry for interrupting the wrapping up of the show here. I'm sure you guys are ready to be done for the night, as much as I am. But I forgot something really important, enough so that I fired the studio back up for this little insert. Sugarloaf Mountain Lookout Tower, 7 or 8 minutes south of Calico Rock. It is a roughly 1.3 mile hike up, 1.3 mile hike back. You'll gain about 600 feet of elevation. It's the only way up is to hike to it, but it's an old CCC built fire watch tower on Sugarloaf Mountain, just south of Calico Rock. And I did not get to make the hike. Might be why I forgot it, because when I was late in the day getting there, late in the day leaving, and it would have been like dark before I was able to get back down off the mountain and then have the 3.5 hour drive home. Just didn't have time, but I really wanted to. Google that. Google map it. Look at the pictures. It's gorgeous. The views are gorgeous. You can still, from what I can tell, go up the lookout tower, and the buildings that were associated with the lookout tower, because it's one of the rare ones where the ranger actually lived on site, are still there. So it's a hike, a lot of elevation gain in less than a mile, but it's less than a mile, so it'll be over with pretty quick. I needed to make sure that got into this episode. I almost was like, screw it. I'm done. I'm just editing. I need to go to bed. It's late. But it's like, no, this is kind of a big part. Like if you're doing trip planning off of any of my episodes, as some of you do, you need to know this is there because you would want to work it in early in your day. It's only probably an hour and a half hike in and out. Do it early in the day and then go to Calico Rock. Anyway around it, just wanted to make sure that I snuck that in here at the very end. Thanks for sticking around and sorry for the interruption. I now return you to your regularly scheduled ending of the episode. But yeah, it's a great little road trip. Little bit of road trip therapy. As I'm It's interesting. I think the reason this is cool to point out is because I think maybe I knew all along that it was a coping mechanism for me, and not in a bad way, but in a way it's where I worked through things and was able, because you step out of the real world and you close the world off and you step into a, didn't know the word for it, but liminal space, a transitory space where you can kind of let the worries of the world stay at your house, right? And you go away for a minute, whether it's a day or a week. And then when you come back, you take back on, but things have changed in that week. You've been in a different mindset, an exploring, an adventuring, a enjoying mindset, whatever it is. I think we all maybe intrinsically know that. Maybe that's part of why we love travel, right? But when you get to put a word on it and understand maybe a framework for it, that's what I love about psychology and sociology and anthropology, all these ologies. When you get to the core of them, they're very practical and they're very simple and they work within frameworks. They just help us understand why the hell we do what we do. And when we start realizing, oh, I just instinctively do certain things and feel drawn to certain things because that's just a part of the human psyche. Now that you get to put a word on it and a template on it and able to recognize it as a thing, an actual thing, you become very empowered to where you can use it in your favor, right? You can use it to improve things. You can do it more mindfully and be like, I'm ready to go. This is cool. I'm shutting this door on my car to take off and I'm leaving everything behind for the next 6 hours, 8 hours, 3 days, whatever. I just think it's really cool. And I think that maybe some of you guys will get some value out of that. And if you stuck with me all the way to the end of this episode, and you did, please send me an email, mywaywardstory@gmail.com. Let me know. I would love to hear if you see that, if you get that, if it makes sense to you, if it has any value to you. I would love to know if you guys like hearing that kind of stuff. Because to be honest, I don't want to say I dumb myself down, but I present a certain part of me to this podcast audience, right? Because in my mind, I'm like, you guys are going to get bored to death with my nerdiness. In a very real way, this podcast is like my little journal of recovery from trauma and becoming something else. But I also think that if I'm not just sitting here telling you, because I'm sort of in the world's mindset now, it's like if I'm not giving you something interesting every 2.3 seconds, you're moving on to the next TikTok, right? If you find value in talking about this kind of stuff and how it can be integrated into our adventures in the world, like, let me know. I would love to hear it. Anyway, I'm not going to draw this out any further. We've run on to an hour tonight, so that's a pretty solid podcast, a pretty solid episode in my book. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you for sticking around as you always do. Again, remember to rate, review, and subscribe if you want to help a guy out. It really helps. And yeah, go to waywardstories.com. If you want to see my Instagram, that's the easiest way to get to it. You can try to remember Wayward Son 119 on Instagram, or you can just go to waywardstories.com and you can have my Instagram, my TikTok, the podcast feed, the YouTube feed. It's all right there on the landing page. Easy to find, best way to do it. Other than that, guys, I hope you have a good holiday if you celebrate. If you don't, or you have reasons not to, I hope whatever you do with your time off, if you get it, you make valuable to you, you make meaningful to you, and you get something you need out of it. Self-care, aware, baby. Hashtag, right? It's actually an important thing. I am not making fun of it at all. We need to normalize it. It's very, very important. But anyway, you guys, I hope you enjoy your holiday. I'm going to be out here, hopefully on the road, enjoying my adventure. It's going to be a huge initiatory experience. This is actually literally about to be an initiatory experience. This is going to be the closing of a hero's journey I stepped into 3.5 years ago, and I've been through the fire. I've seen the agony and the ecstasy. I completed the journey, and now there's going to be a ritualistic conferral of status. In function, that's not going to happen because ain't nobody ever going to give me a job for this degree, it looks like. But that ritualistic component that's so important to humanity is in there, where it's going to come to a ritualistic conferral of the new status that I have gained through going to school. That's a really cool thought, and I'm really glad I'm making myself go do this trip. So you guys wish me well in good safety, because it's a long drive. And we'll catch you again after I'm back at some point. I'm sure I will have plenty to tell you. Y'all, I'm going to stay in Salem for 3 days because I'm graduating just 40 minutes up the road. And I was like, oh, I can stay in the town where I'm graduating, or I can stay in Salem. Yeah. What? Okay. There'll be a new podcast sometime in the next month or two that'll outline all of that for you guys. Until then, you guys, I love all of you, every one of you, even those of you I've never even heard from. I love you. Understand that. And we will catch you next time. And until we do meet again, you guys remember to be good to each other.